Hey, welcome to Chit Chat with Kat. Today's topic of discussion is Ahimsa. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background to where that comes from, because it is part of our yoga philosophy, and our yoga philosophy stems from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which is kind of like the guidelines by which we operate as yogis. So within Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, we actually have Ashtanga Yoga. So this means the eight-limbed path, or the eightfold path. So you don't get that confused with Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga, so which is actually a style of yoga. Ashtanga means eight, and so yoga means union. So this is an eightfold path of union. So, or to union, I should say. So those 8 paths include yamas, which we're going to talk about today, niyama, asana, which you know to be your postures or practice. It actually means seat in Sanskrit. Pranayama, breath work. Pratyahara, dhyana, dhyana, and samadhi. So they're the 8 limbs. So there's going to not be a test on this today. Well, not today anyway. Actually, never. So the first of these restraints are the yamas, and this is the first limb. And yama actually means restraint, and so it's kind of like a code of ethics. And to be fair, it's not anything unusual in there. It's really just guidelines by which we would want to live, so that we have a happy and respectful life and a pleasant time on this planet in this lifetime. So there's not going to be anything outrageous in there. So there are actually 5 yamas, and those include Ahimsa, which we're going to talk about today, Satya, which means truthfulness, Asetya, which means non-stealing, Brahmacharya, which is controversial, quite honestly. It can go from one extreme to the other. So that's a whole other subject matter, and we won't delve into that today, but remind me at some point and we will go back there. And the 5th one is aparigraha, and so that is actually quite a mouthful, and that means non-covetousness. So if you've ever been associated with any other kind of faith or I guess religion or any other kind of practice, and be very clear here that yoga is a philosophy, it's not a religion, and we will delve into the difference between those two things. But the simplest is that in a philosophy we look inwards, introspectively, to find the answers to questions that we ponder in our lives, and in religion you are actually looking outwards to a deity or some sort of leadership to find those answers for you, and quite often they send you back to yourself to find them anyway. So interestingly enough there. So Ahimsa. What is Ahimsa? Essentially, Ahimsa in Sanskrit translates in English to non-violence. So non-violence towards other human beings, towards anything else on this planet in this lifetime, including yourself. And that's the big one. So non-violence is really, it does have sort of, I guess, negative connotations. So the way I'm going to shift that is to actually change that to say it's around compassion and kindness. So when you look at Ahimsa, or you invite Ahimsa or integrate the practice of Ahimsa into your life, you're really looking at self-talk, compassion towards other human beings, compassion towards yourself, kindness on the outside, kindness on the inside. How do I integrate that into my life? So Ahimsa, it can start out very simply with your self-talk. How are you talking to yourself? Do you go into something, it doesn't matter what it is, you're cooking at the stove, you're lacing up your shoes, you're going for a run, you go, oh, I'm crap at that, or oh, bloody hell, I didn't make it today, or oh, I'm no good at this, or I'm too fat, or I'm too this, or I didn't do that, or I don't do this, whatever that might be, that actually constitutes as Ahimsa. So this negative self-talk is actually how we're adding to the belief that we're not good enough, and we are good enough, and we are loved. We just need to reaffirm that and believe that ourselves. And so one of the steps towards that is actually reminding ourselves on a daily basis of how we speak to ourselves. So say if you did not tie up your shoelaces properly and you tripped over, Not a great outcome, not gonna lie, not a great outcome. Grazed knees, never fun. But maybe it's a lesson in oh, maybe I should tie my shoelaces, or I need to take a little bit of time next time to prepare. So instead of cursing yourself and telling yourself how bad and how hideous you are, you know, perhaps, you know, you pick yourself up and dust yourself off, and maybe give yourself a little bit more space the next day in order to prepare for that run. You know, there are so many different ways that, like, as you move into a yoga posture and you get down, you go, oh God, I'm crap today. Sometimes we don't want to say that we're crap, and because as soon as we say that, you feel the chest kind of sinking and the heart getting a little bit sad. And they're the kind of things that we want to stop, because this beautiful big heart bursting with love, and then all of a sudden you put a little pin in it and it deflates a little bit. So we want to keep you happy and healthy, and some of the ways that we do that is by managing our self-talk. So maybe if we're getting to that asana or that posture, and maybe we're not as open as today as we were yesterday, or as flexible, or as something, practicing acceptance for where you are today, being compassionate to the self, and understanding that today is not tomorrow, yesterday is not today, every day is different, the body is different, the physical self is different every day, we feel mentally and emotionally different every day because we're impacted by different things. So all we have to do is practice that compassion towards ourselves, and it's not something that's going to just happen overnight. As you go through this process, and every time that word ahimsa will stick in your head, and every time you go through your day and you notice that perhaps your self-talk gets to a point where it's not very good, that word ahimsa is going to pop up into your head, and it's going to make you stop in your tracks and think about exactly what it is that you've said to yourself, and maybe turn those words around so it doesn't have that negative, berating self-talk, but actually an air of positivity where you will look towards an evolution or a change in the future, or you practice acceptance and say, this is where I am today. Maybe I can try this to go somewhere different tomorrow. And this can be applied to any area of your life. Now, this goes to when we start practicing ahimsa and we start looking at it from you know, a self-love perspective. All of a sudden we start to look outside of our own circle, and we start to practice that loving kindness and compassion to other human beings. We see it all the time in our compassion for animals. We're so compassionate towards animals. Why don't we treat ourselves with that same level of compassion and kindness? Because we deserve it. And with your self-talk, talk to yourself in the same way that you would talk to a child or to your best friend. So you wouldn't tell your best friend that they're a complete idiot and that they're useless and they can't do this and they can't do that, or they're not worthy of love. You wouldn't say that to them. You would give them a hug and you would tell them, I love you. It may not have worked this time, but it's going to be better tomorrow, and I'm going to be standing here right by your side when you give that another try. That's what you'd say to them. So if we speak that way to our friends and our family and the people that we really care about, why do we speak to ourselves any differently? This is a really big part of self-love and doing some work in this space. So yeah, it takes a little bit of practice, and it takes a little bit of like commitment, I guess, to the cause. But eventually you're going to get to a point where each time you start talking to yourself, you will stop yourself, and ahimsa will spring to mind, and you will actually change how you speak to yourself. And as I said, eventually that will flow out into other areas of your life, and eventually you start to, that compassion and kindness starts to seep into other areas of your life, and people perhaps that you don't have time for, all of a sudden you kind of lean in and you view their outcomes with a little bit more empathy. So you become more empathetic and you view things with compassion and kindness. And you don't know what's gone on for somebody else in their day. They could be having bad self-talk and they need a lesson on ahimsa. You don't know that, but just your practice of compassion and kindness towards that individual may well just change their day entirely. So I guess going a little bit deeper into this, some people do take Ahimsa I guess to another level, and you know, we can go into talking about being vegetarian and vegan, but I don't subscribe to putting pressure on anyone to be either one of those things. You know, that is a personal choice, and I will never dictate to you what I think that outcome should be. That is absolutely 100% personal preference. But yes, Ahimsa can stem as far, and I use the word stem, can stem as far as becoming vegetarian, because it's that act of non-violence, not killing something else, you know, as a food source. My personal practice is that I take what I need. So primarily I am vegetarian. I'm not vegan. But I am vegetarian. Probably in the last maybe 12 months, I may have eaten fish maybe once. So look, did I get excited by that? No, I didn't. So I kind of wondered why I did it. But this is a personal choice. So I'm not going to tell you that you should be one thing or you should be another. It is absolutely 100% personal preference. And I support whatever decision you make in that space. What we are talking about here, though, is self-love and compassion for the self. And so that's where we're going to direct this Ahimsa in this first instance, towards the self. So practicing kindness and compassion to the self, and watching that kindness and compassion flood out into other areas of our life. So remember that word, Ahimsa. A-H-I-M-S-A, Ahimsa, 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 Ahimsa. Yeah, no, we're not going to start any kind of like cheer squad disco here, but yes, you will need to remember that word, Ahimsa. So I'm going to say it one more time, Ahimsa, and it means compassion and kindness. And we're going to start that compassion and kindness with our self-talk and how we are interacting with other people in this world. Have a great day, and I will talk to you on the next video.